transit. And it's, the funding is a very complicated formula, and thank goodness we have Melinda Parker here today to explain all the funding for transit. And Melinda has spent a lot of days working on this and putting this program together today. And Melinda, thank you because a lot of good information in this.
Tony, before she starts, I want to recognize Sam Parker, who's here with us. Sam is our rep on the transit board. And Sam, you want to just acknowledge yourself to the commission?
Good to be here. Happy New Year.
And Sam, what's you're serving in as a finance chair presently, are you?
Yes, I share the financial wisdom.
Very good. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today we're going to have a legislative overview for the legislation that impacts us here at Jefferson County Commission. We're going to cover three pieces of legislation. We're going to cover House Bill 578, and that's Act 2015-226, which is the sales tax. We're going to cover Act 2013/380 and Alabama Code 1975, Section 28-3-190, that is the beer tax. So, these are the items that we'll try to cover today. We'll have an overview, go over some important points of the legislation, review some calculations, and then look at the transit performance overview, how it relates to Jefferson County and the funding that we have provided. Next slide, please. Okay, the purpose of this legislative overview is just to provide you with a general understanding of the legislation and our obligation that we have in remitting funds to the transit authority. This is not to be an all-inclusive or don't walk away as a subject matter expert. Next slide. Before we get started, I thought we would go over a few key terms that deals with one portion of the legislation. First, ad valorem tax. That's defined as any real or personal property tax that is collected by the tax collector or the Department of Revenue. When we reference the authority, we'll be referring to the Birmingham-Jefferson County Transit Authority. And the authorizing county is us, Jefferson County Commission. The principal municipality is the municipality in an authorizing county having the largest population, which is the city of Birmingham. Next slide, please. Participating municipalities is defined as any municipality that has submitted a written request to the transit authority and they would like to have transit services. Now, first we'll look at the purpose of House Bill 627 Act 2013-380. It provides for the fixing of the rates, fees, and charges by the authority. In essence, this is what gives the authority the guidelines of how they can fix rates and fees and charges. Provides that rates charged for the use of the transit system be subjected to the approval of the principal municipality, which is the city of Birmingham. Provides a method for us to do calculations to collect the ad valorem taxes, and in addition, the amount that the principal municipality and participating municipalities provide. It provides that we have a review of the transit authority's budget, but it's only by the principal municipality. Now, we can review it, but we have no authority to correct or to ask if they increase or decrease. First, we'll look at Section 2, and we're going to talk about the ad valorem tax itself. The ad valorem tax, step to the side so you can see it. Okay, the ad valorem tax, we said, that's all the real and personal property taxes that we collect here in Jefferson County. And it's done either by the tax collector or the director of revenue. This tax, this is important, this tax, however, it excludes certain taxes, which means that we cannot withhold anything from the state of Alabama, from any municipality, from school boards, fire districts, or other entities located in the county. An example would be the stormwater. We can't base anything on those fees. Rate setting. There's two sections that talks about the rate section. The first one is 730, and it just gives the transit authority the authority to fix and revise from time to time reasonable rates, fees, and other charges for public transportation. Next slide, please. Section 8A rolls in and it reemphasizes that the transit authority does have the right to fix and revise. But it also, it goes on and it tells you that they must have enough revenue in order to operate. And revenue required to maintain efficient operation of the system. So that means that if the transit authority wants to do their budget and the principal municipality has actually reviewed the budget, if it's passed and if the transit authority said, well, we need, this doesn't meet, we can't operate efficiently, they have the right to go in and revise their rates. Okay? This concerns us, the annual amount to be paid by us to the transit authority. Now, this is a little complicated calculation, but in essence, what it does is that we, the county, by legislation, by this act, we're required to pay 5.5% of the first 18 million plus. And that is comprised of this calculation originates from the tax collector's office. And the tax collector's office would take the road fund, because remember, we can't take all of the funds. So we take the road fund and we calculate the first 18 million. Now this amount that for the county, we add in each municipality that is participating. So if we have 10 municipalities that's participating, we add in their share of the road fund, and we calculate, get an aggregate number, and then we calculate 5.5% of that, which is normally like $2 million. Then all of the excess of that, we only multiply it by 2.5%. We add those numbers together, and that is the amount that is remitted from Jefferson County to the transit authority. And that is an annual amount that we calculate and remit. Now, section 3 says that the county shall determine the number of residents of the county residing in any unincorporated area, which means, like for an example, Forestdale. Forestdale is not a municipality, so therefore they sit in unincorporated Jefferson County. Their rate has to be calculated on a different basis. It's calculated $1 per person per capita that's in reasonable walking distance. So if you're outside of that boundary, what we define as reasonable, then the whole Forestdale won't be included in that calculation, only those who actually have access to the bus service.
What is the reasonable walking distance?
Well, studies have shown about 2 miles, but that is something that, per the legislation, that we can determine. But we'll probably work with the transit authority to make sure they have the recent data. But I did some research, and from the census, and normally that is like within a 2-mile distance. But we also have to factor in, if it's an area that has a lot of elderly people, then 2 miles might not be reasonable. So we might have to define it as a shorter distance.
And what if it's a rural area? Because we do have some areas where roads are not paved in my district.
So that would be one of those items where we would have to make sure the bus can actually get there. So I think maybe Lipscomb, is that one of the areas? Again, that would be something that the county, we have the discretion to decide, how we're going to address that to make sure those people get access to the bus route. Okay? All right, and next, it's the same method of calculation is used for the city of Birmingham. Now this one right here, there's been a lot of misinformation going around. One time people were thinking they were supposed to get 10% of the city of Birmingham's actual ad valorem taxes, the total amount. And that is not true, because per the legislation, you can only use that portion, exclude all those others, and it leaves you with the county road fund. So they get 10% of that amount. The tax collector collects that and sends one payment over on behalf of the county and the principal municipality, which is the city of Birmingham. Section 26 deals with requests for transit service by the municipalities. You have to request to the transit authority that you would like to be serviced. And the municipalities have to make sure that they know the routes they want, the times. That's all. They have to do this, and it has to be a written request. I'm sorry.
I'd like to interject here that according to the legislation, there's a time definite that has to be done, which is March 1st.
That is correct.
Of each year.
That is correct. So the annual budget, that is something that in writing, that the county does have the authorization to actually, at our own expense, they'll go in and review their books. So if it's something that we need to review, we can actually at our own expense go in and look at their books. And it gives this is actually not only us, but each municipality that's actually being serviced. Now, the budget review. This is where the municipality that actually has the largest contribution, which is the city of Birmingham, they have the right, and as Mr. Sam said, there's a timeline. And the timeline, I don't think we followed the timeline in the past, but I do know going forward, they simply just gonna follow this timeline. So once they give us the budget, and they will also give us a copy of their budget, the city of Birmingham is the only entity that can actually say, you know, it's excessive and we need for you to relook at that. Now, if that time passes by and no one has put any input, then their budget passes, and at that time, we have no rights or no voice, or the city of Birmingham doesn't have a voice to tell them that they want them to reduce their budget.
Again, there's a time, the time period is, the budget is submitted to the governmental entities by May 1st, and then they have until May 15th to reply to that.
That is correct. Let me just interject that is what the legislation states. However, that is not the case that has been happening in the past. So we haven't been given the budgets, you know, in a timely fashion. So that piece of the legislation we have not been following. But with the new administration at the Transit Authority, they have assured us that going forward, that they will make sure that they meet their timelines so that we can meet our timelines. Okay, certified routes, again, municipalities, they have to certify in writing to the Transit Authority the routes to be operated during the year, and they have to agree to make the payments as provided in Section 9. Next slide. Okay, this is the cost allocation. All municipalities served may by a written agreement filed with the Transit Authority agree to allocate costs of operation by any such route on a different basis than provided herein. Now this one is important because for some years back, I know up under former Mayor Bell's administration, the city of Birmingham and the Transit Authority entered into an agreement where the city of Birmingham only paid $10 million. That was legal because they have an agreement, and that's what they agreed upon. Now, that's no longer in effect, and they're actually being charged per hour as all of the other municipalities, but that was something that the legislation did allow. Annual amounts to be paid by municipalities. Each municipality is to certify multiplying the hours of operation based on routes. What this does is the Transit Authority, they take all of their expenditures, projected expenditures, and all their projected revenues. So if the expenditures are more than the revenue that they have coming in, and they subtract that and they multiply the hours to make sure they get a rate. And this rate actually is the rate that each municipality will pay per hour for bus services.
What is that rate?
We're gonna get to that. Okay, Section 31 gives the tax collector the authority to remit the payment. And that's the payment that I've been speaking about from the city of Birmingham, from Jefferson County, and from any participating municipality that would actually, they make a request to the tax collector, and the tax collector can withhold from their ad valorem taxes an amount to cover their transit, their costs for that year. Right now, we only have one municipality that's left that's actually that we, the Jefferson County tax collectors collecting for, and that's the city of Tarrant. Everyone else pay their transit portion to the transit directly. Okay, these are the payments. The required payments shall be made on a monthly basis or such other payment schedule as the county commission, city of Birmingham, or municipality shall agree to with the transit authority. In the tax collector, we pay annually. In the revenue department, we submit some of those taxes on a monthly basis, but the transit is annual. This is the audit, which I think I might have got ahead of myself on something. I've already covered this, that we have the right to audit at our own expense the books.
Yeah.
Next slide. Okay. What you see here is a slide that dated from 2016 of the ad valorem taxes that are actually remitted by the tax collector. And you can see that the trend for this tax is actually trended up. And this is this is directly related to, it starts with the Board of Equalization. The Board of Equalization, they place a value on all the properties. Then it's sent to the tax assessor. And the tax assessor, they assess a percentage, either 10% or 15%, depending on what type of class the property is. So as properties increase in Jefferson County, we should think that this amount will increase. Now, the numbers you see in blue are actually the numbers that were remitted on behalf of the city of Birmingham, and the orangey color is actually for what the county has remitted. And we do have the 2019 numbers. However, I don't think the check is being released to this week, but I do have the numbers. Good. Next slide. And the next section covers the beer tax. The beer tax is another source of revenue that is provided via Jefferson County Commission. This tax is paid directly to the Director of Revenue of Jefferson County. The tax collected is divided into funds A, B, and C. That is very important because, again, this piece of legislation, there were some that thought that they should be getting, the county was not given the correct allocation because it should be based on 50% of the tax collected. It is not 50% of the total tax collected. It is 50% of the tier which the transit authority falls into. Now, Fund A shall receive 4/9 of the tax received. Fund B receives 2/9, and Fund C receives 3/9 of the tax received. So they come into the revenue department, and then they are dispersed out on a monthly basis by the Director of Revenue. Next slide.
Do we know what that beer tax is?
The amount we'll get to, we have some new numbers. Okay, Fund A. So once you do all your 3/9, 2/9, and 4/9, what happens then, you take this Fund A and you take 2% off of Fund A. That 2% goes directly to Jefferson County Commission General Fund. So that's ours as a commission for collecting the tax. Then 2/8 of the remaining fund is paid to Jefferson County Board of Education. Okay, and that's to fund salaries for public school teachers in Jefferson County. 3/8 is retained in the general treasury of the county. Now this is in addition to our commission, because the commission is basically for us collecting it in, and this is our portion of the tax. 3/8 shall be distributed to the incorporated municipalities, and this is based on respective populations and the census data. And again, this is calculated, revenue has a program that they use, and that's how all of this is calculated and remitted out. Next slide. Fund B is distributed to incorporated municipalities within the county on the basis of percentage of beer which was delivered to a retailer within the respective corporate limits of each municipality in the county. You sell more beer, you get more piece of portion of this beer tax.
West End should be rich.
Okay. Method C, which is what relates to the transit authority. Now, they normally receive, you receive either 50% of that tier amount, or you can receive the greater of $2 million. And so far, for years, you'll see what it's normally the $2 million when you take out the tier. The balance then is divided between the county and the incorporated municipalities within the county upon a population. So again, this is based on like census data. And the last portion of what we receive out of this portion, the county must actually take 5% of that amount, and we must allocate it for fire protection, paramedic services, and equipment in the fire districts. So of our percentage, we take 5 and redistribute out.
Now, Melinda, that $2 million is not the $2 million on the refunding of the.
No, sir, it's not.
That's a whole separate item.
Yes, sir. This is just the beer tax.
That's the beer tax.
And the fire districts are all different. I don't know how that 5% is allocated to what district, but you have some that receive it and some that don't. So I'm not so sure that that's,
I would have to, refer to Mr. Hosey, because this tax is actually, distributed by his department, but that is what the legislation says.
I've got some folks that
Can you
would like
answer?
to have it.
Can you
It's
answer?
a small amount, but I'm not sure the detailed numbers on this, because all this is in our formulas and the distribution that we do monthly. Historically, we have been issuing $2 million to the transit authority. There is a caveat that if it reaches a certain level, we can, that will increase, but we don't anticipate that in the near future. We looked at it recently, and that beer tax really stays about this fairly level on an annual basis. But I'd be happy to get you guys a detailed listing of what the total beer tax is and the actual distribution to the cities, the transit authority, and also the fire district.
That'd be good. I'd like to see that
I can get
too.
that this afternoon.
So if it's increased, you have to give them more money?
No, I think it's.
It's only with this, I did a formula because I wanted to try to see what it would take for us to actually be able to provide additional funding. So for my formula, I actually made this one an example, the $7 million. So I took the $7 million and I multiplied that by their 3 nights, okay? So that came out to be $2,350, $2,350,155.77. So per the statute, we can either take 50% of that amount, which would have been like 1.1 million, or the greater of the 2 million. So the 2 million is more than that, so that's the cap. In order for anyone to receive any additional money from the beer tax, our beer tax would have to grow to about $13 million. That's a little bit short of even, well, that is a little bit more than doubling what we have now, because as you can see, the trend is trending down. So that's the reason why we don't really foresee in any time in the future that we're gonna actually be able to get any additional money via this method to the transit authority on the beer tax.
So people are drinking less.
That's another study outside of this. I mean, we have some hypotheses because we know it could be that people are drinking less. We have brewers now, but there's a calculation where it has to meet, in order for it to meet the definition of beer or malt, it has to be up under a certain percentage of alcohol. So if we have brewers that are making a little more than that, they wouldn't be taxed in this formula.
So they might be drinking whiskey.
Well, I'm thinking craft beer, wine.
There was an article recently about the.
But Commissioner Stevens, was your point that some fire districts receive this funding and some do
I
not?
was thinking that you have volunteer fire departments and you have fire districts and they're all there for many throughout the county.
Well, this is just unincorporated.
And,
I'm sorry, unincorporated areas is what we pay our 5%
and
to.
most municipalities do have a municipal fire department.
That's correct. So we're only
So
doing
that would
unincorporated.
be entirely different.
But every
But all this
volunteer,
is that's a conversation for another time. We're talking about transit.
Wait, I wanna ask
well, that's the
that.
distribution.
Dr.
Are
Ryan.
volunteer fire departments and fire districts different?
Yes.
So as a
And
fire
I will
district-
give you one different than that. It's just about each enabling legislation for the fire districts are different and have certain peculiarities.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we're looking at, possibly, is to try to get that standardized moving over and get a level funding. I'll give you an example. You've got the Burlingport Fire Department and you have, Concord, who are depending on gas, oil wells, for a great deal of their income. Well, they've changed the legislation now where they're not getting that anymore, and it's putting them in, it represented a quarter of their budget. So now they're having to alter things. So, but like I said, that's
Let me ask,
another day.
but Lipscomb and Brighton, fire department doesn't account, they couldn't get none of that?
If Mr. Hosey, well, he's gonna make sure that he provides, get his team to pull the numbers, because they have a distribution and it outlines everyone that received a portion of that 5.5%.
And if they didn't, if they supposed to get some, and they are not getting it, we need to give them their money and back pay.
Well, the question would be,
I agree.
what does the legislation speaks to? Does it speaks to fire districts? And it was mentioned, some fire districts may be different. So it's a question of qualification under this legislation. as to whether they will receive anything.
I got a strange feeling that those two supposed to get some.
Okay. Then
Well, I bet they do.
We'll see.
I bet they do.
They may receive something. It will be in their distribution because they receive a check monthly from revenue, which is shared revenue. Part of it is the beer tax, part of it is some other road tax and et cetera. So we can look at the distribution and see whether or not any of that is going to those municipalities.
Okay, so this summarizes the beer tax and how it relates to the transit authority. The takeaway is, for now, until the beer tax grows, that we'll be remitting $2 million to the transit authority. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the final piece of legislation we're gonna look at, and that is actually the sales tax fund. And the sales tax legislature of Jefferson County is authorized to levy and to collect sales tax in the county and to apply the proceeds to pay the 2017 warrants and certain other uses described below. I want to point this out. There was no provision that I could find in the legislation that actually stated the intended or required purpose for funding remitted to the transit authority, which means that there was no piece of legislation that said that they have to use it for operating or they have to use it for capital. It didn't state that.
Well, it was our impression when that legislation was going through that that $2 million would be used to be matching for an additional 10 million or so from the feds, and that's what it was to be used for. But what you're saying is,
It's not outlined in the legislation. That doesn't mean that's not something that, you know, you can do with the transit authority on an agreement, but it's not outlined in the legislation.
But I would point out, though, that with regards to how Max is using that fund, it complies with what you're saying. They did use it, and we sent you all a report that was requested by Commissioner Stevens. We sent you a report where they outlined in detail how they used that money for the year 2018, Tony, was it? We sent that to you all, and I have another copy if you can't locate yours.
Yeah.
So we'll request that they provide us with an update as to how they used it for 2019.
And it was for shelters and how many they
Well,
well, I mean, by this being on this slide, it just, why is it even up there then?
I'm doing the legislative overview. So I was
Okay.
tasked with making sure I go through the
I
legislation.
know, but you're specifically pointing out that that doesn't have any intended purpose.
Because that's a part of the legislation, and anything
I'm
that has
just
been brought to
pointing it out.
us as a misconception, I'm trying to make sure, or I was tasked with making sure that I read through the legislation.
Could you go over that again? Because I want you to go over that again. Right there.
This part,
Yes.
okay, this
From the
just,
beginning, right there.
okay, this just says that there's nothing in sales tax, and you have the legislation in your package. There's nothing in that legislation that outlines and says that the transit authority must do this with the $2 million. That's the takeaway. And I provided everyone with a copy of the legislation. All right, the Sales Tax Act provides that the proceeds of the sales tax are distributed each fiscal year, which we have been doing. And this sales tax is scheduled to sunset in 2042. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the priority list. We pay our debt service first. The general fund gets the 36.3 million. The school boards gets 18 million. The community service fund, 3.6. The transit authority gets 2 million. And this is actually with sunset. You'll see on the next slide, not so going to be decreased after 10 payments. The Birmingham Zoo is up to 500,000, and then anything that is remaining goes to the general fund. Next slide, please. Okay, we've already went over that. The transit is actually fifth, as we saw. So what that means is that if for some reason, this does not obligate the county to pay them if we don't collect enough in sales tax. So by the time when we get to the transit, if we have depleted on those other priorities, everything, then nothing will be due to them. But they get up to $2 million per fiscal year, and that is for 10 years. After the first 10 years, then the payment will reduce to $1 million until it sunsets. Next slide, please. And this is just a graph that actually shows you the level funding, $2 million up to 2027. And then 2028, onto the sunset, so the legislation is rewritten, it'll be 1 million.
And if it's none left, they will not receive the 2 million.
That's right. If we
down to.
Right, if prior to 1, 2, 3, and 4, for some reason take up all the fund that we collect, then no ma'am, they won't. So we go in that order. Now, this is just a brief transit performance overview, but it's only in relation to the funding that we provided to them, so I only included those routes. Next slide, please. This was the proposed allocation for Jefferson County funds to the municipalities. So we have Adamsville, Brighton, Fairfield, and Lipscomb. I know you're gonna probably say, well, where's Forestdale? Forestdale is unincorporated, so therefore they cannot use this model where the legislation, so they can't charge them an hourly rate per se. Okay. Next slide.
I did, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
But at the appropriate time, I do want to ask in regards to an issue that's been brought to my attention by the municipal leaders of Fairfield. And so you can let me know when that would be appropriate. I don't want to disturb your presentation if it's not a good time.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, second.
I get it.
All right, this just shows the trend of the rates that the municipalities have paid since this legislation was prepared. And we can see that it started with $47.90. Now, I will point out here, you see 2019, well 2018, you see $72.76. That's the hourly rate that's charged to the municipalities for transit, and it dipped. This was an error. This was an internal error where the financials, something was reported not in the correct place. So the transit decided, since they had already pushed out the amount, that they would not go back and adjust the amount. So for 2019, and during that pilot period, we were paying at $54.29. And then this is the true amount. It is $82.36. I went and I did an average just to see, was the trend in line, and it was only an average like $5.70 some. So to me, that is a rate increase for municipalities. That's in line. Next slide, please. This is the ridership. It goes back to June when the county first remitted funding to help expand the transit. So you can see I have Fairfield's in blue, Brighton is in the orange, Lipscomb is gray, Adamsville is yellow, gold, and blue is Forestdale. Next slide. Any questions regarding the information that was pertained to this presentation?
So one of the questions that I did have is, there was a route, and I think it was 45, it's either 45 or 41, that should have been going from Fairfield, but it seems to be going more to Midfield than it is Fairfield. And I want to make sure, I'm trying to recall it as it was brought to my attention. And then it was stated that the $250,000, I think, of that 80 went for Fairfield, and that route, which takes students to Miles College, that's one of the routes that had been cut out. Is there any? Do we necessarily have input into the routes that are paid for, Mr. Jackson?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's strictly between the municipality and Max.
Okay, but if the municipality,
as was mentioned earlier, each municipality that desires to have transit has to submit in writing a request to Max, and then the two of them work out the routes.
okay, so that was done, my understanding, by the city of Fairfield. However, they are now blaming us, not the government, but I'm only saying, just hear me out. But it is my understanding that it is being said that then the county needs to put more money into assisting in order for this route to come. Otherwise, the city of Fairfield, what we thought may have been alleviating a problem or eliminating a problem, created a problem. So that's why I'm saying that if the city leaders there have already contacted Max, then I'm just trying to figure out why are they still kind of doing things from my understanding as they please, as in Max, and not of the request of the city.
Well, I'm not aware and familiar with all of those details. I recall that Joseph from your office came down one morning and had a request from Mayor Penny that we speak to Max. But what I did was I put both the Max and Mayor Penny on the line together, and I requested that they meet and resolve whatever issues they have, and then we're out of it. We don't get involved in trying to determine where these routes ought to go. That's between the municipality and Max, and what the commission did is that it budgeted a certain amount of funds to assist with those transit services, and that's what we did, and that's the extent of our involvement. And I haven't heard anything back from either party in terms of what they've done.
And then I will get with Joseph, but it is clearly my understanding that that issue has not been resolved and that route is not functioning at this time, regardless to the request that was made, which is why it is being thought that the county, because obviously Fairfield doesn't have the money, and that was one of the reasons why they were selected. But we'll have an offline discussion, because I don't want to say what my thoughts are truly in this meeting. I just don't understand how, if we are to give money, we at least need to be updated as a commission. If you're going to give money, then you need to know what is happening in your district or what's happening in your county. I mean, that's just I don't get that. I mean, if you're going there and we're approving money on the understanding of one thing, but what's being provided is another, then that's a disservice to the folk that you're serving. So I don't have no understanding of that. And Mr. Jackson, respectfully, Mr. PETELOS, you're going to help him to give me an understanding. Okay? Because if it's a problem and we're supposed to be paying for the problem, then I'd like to see it fixed.
Well, I think when a municipality and the transit authority negotiate the routes, then I think it has to be a mutual understanding between them as to what they're going to do and how much that municipality is going to pay. Now, when you come in and say, well, this is the routes we want, but we're not going to pay, county, you're going to pay for us, then that kind of puts us into a quagmire that we don't want to be.
And I won't get in until we commission next.
Well, you know, here's what I recall about this. A couple of years ago, that there was some routes that were going through the city of Fairfield and Brighton and Lipscomb that the transit authority was not opening their doors or stopping in those routes. Came to us and we put $100,000 in to help get those people picked up and rode. A couple weeks later, said, well, that wasn't enough, so we had to do another 10,000. And then, you know, we went through the budget process and we allocated $250,000 to help with these riderships that we had tried to help before. And the way I read this, it's kind of like, well, your 250 ain't enough. We're 48,000 short. So it looks like the transit authority is coming back for more. And this was a one-time budget item. I don't think it was perpetual. So I'm just saying.
What Max did was work within the allocation that we had, and whatever routes they could work out with the municipalities is what they did. And so, what I can say generally is this, and I've requested that Max will come and present to the commission again, basically in terms of their new management, etc. But there is a more complex issue involved in this, because if all of these routes emanate out of the city of Birmingham, every single one of them. And if you recall, recently Max had to decrease some services to Birmingham.
Well, because Birmingham cut them.
Exactly. It affected all of those routes. So part of that has to do with 45 and the 1, Commissioner. You're right about the route, that route. 45 is the highest ridership in the system. And so we'll need to have Max to come and speak to the commission with regards to your issue, or you can go and speak to Max
No, I'd like
regarding
for
the
them
issue
to
that
come
they
to the
have with Mayor
commission.
Penny. But that is the complex issue. And
So you're saying what happened with Birmingham affected all of the routes throughout Jefferson County that we are
every one of
paying
them. As a
for?
matter of fact,
And the
there's some
rates
other
went up.
municipalities that are having conversations with Max now with regards to how they had to adjust their services to accommodate that shortfall. Yes, that's correct.
And they cut the routes by the ridership. They cut the ones that wasn't being, used.
Which is
That's how
correct.
they end up, rerouting in Birmingham. Yes, it did affect.
But 45 has, as you know, have a large ridership, which is why that had adversely impacted Fairfield the way that it did. And that's why the mayor and some of the council members started calling me about it, because they don't have the money. And it kind of makes me feel bad, really, because that's why we were doing the gesture that we did to try to offset costs that we knew that these different municipalities could not afford. I mean, that was the whole objective. And I'm one, if we're not achieving the objective, it makes me feel like what we did was in vain, so to speak. And even if there was a shortfall, even if Birmingham cut their routes, at least come back and let us know, rather than we're putting the money there and then the leaders are calling whoever, but I know I was called, and you don't have a sufficient answer. I mean, because like I said before, that's why they came to us initially. They didn't have enough money. The municipalities did. And so it just seemed to me like it just doesn't make sense, Mr. Jackson, and I'm going to leave that at that. Because I can be very candid. And I'm just telling you that this is, if we're putting money out there and it's not at least helping to solve the problem, it seems to me we have created a problem. And that's not something the commission needs to get the brunt of. The public perception is that, we've done this, that, and the other, but hey, all we know is that the routes that we ride on, you're talking about the citizens, that's all that they know. The routes we need, that's not what's functioning.
We have $250,000, and it does what it does. If there's a shortfall, someone has to make up the shortfall.
It was a stopgap.
Yes.
It was a one-time.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure you're clear.
But
Because to
We
help.
got $250,000. And the negotiation was between all of the municipalities and Max.
so then I'm going to respectfully ask Mr. PETELOS if you can direct your staff, no disrespect to you, but I'm putting it back to you, then for Max to come and give the entire commission an overview of what they're doing in these various cities that we're paying for. And then at that time, I can I'm not interested in individually going to do anything. A commission decided this $250,000, and I'd like to have a report on what's going on with these routes. If we're not going to be assisting the folk to the degree of what we put the money for there, then I think we need to rethink our position moving forward. And it's just that simple.
Respectfully, Commissioner,
Yes.
the request has already been made for Max to come and present it to the
Appreciate it.
commission.
Thank you.
I thought
It'll
that's what
follow
this
this
was.
presentation. It'll follow this presentation.
Yes, sir.
Which was just to provide you with an overview of how it works. And then when the Max comes down to make their presentation, then we can be more focused in terms of what we need to discuss.
How much is our total contribution to Max from all sources? Ours, the county, when we spend, when we pay.
All we do is collect taxes and distribute it. We don't have a contribution at all other than what we.
$250,000.
250,000, right, that's what we do.
360 so far.
250,
360.
360.
We had 100,000, 10,000, 250,000.
Right.
That's our
You
three,
mean-
that's our three contributions to Max.
In addition to whatever
Year and a half.
taxes and that.
Oh, the one, oh, yeah, the one cent.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
if we have, are there any other questions?
But let me ask you this, what, that was, wasn't that before Birmingham cut their routes?
It was.
It was before, and so when we gave the money,
No, it wasn't before Birmingham cut the routes.
it,
The 100 was.
100.
yeah.
100 was.
So, that was before, because all that did was make, extended the time, but the routes was already in place.
No, the routes were cut this year in 19.
Right. And
Just,
we already-
just recently, just a few months ago.
Right, and we
What-
gave out money
November,
last year.
in November. The routes were cut in
We gave out
November.
money last year, so the money that we gave is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, after Birmingham cut their route.
It's doing
that
all it can
hurt-
do.
That hurt.
It had a domino effect on all.
Right.
Exactly.
So-
So
so
they'll come and explain
it
it to
had
us
nothing to do with the money
at the
that
next
we
meeting. We
gave.
requested them to be here. They'll be here.
Linda, thank you for,
Excellent job.
Excellent.
Hey, what is
excellent job.
what's the beer tax?
What,
What was that beer tax?
the amount?
Uh-huh. On a can of beer, I don't know how they measure it.
Oh, no, I have that legislation, I'll send it to you.
Oh,
I
man.
highlight it, I don't know. I'll highlight that.
Let me ask you this quickly before you finish. Excuse me. On the breweries that we have, do we also collect a tax from them?
We collect a tax, but if the brewers, if the alcohol content is over a certain level, then that portion is not taxed, but we do collect a tax from them. And when we look at brewers, you know, most of them have more alcohol than the traditional beer, which means in most cases, people might not drink as much, whereas you might drink a 6-pack of maybe Miller Lite or something. You go to a brewery, there, you might not can drink with 1 or 2. So that has an impact because this is on, and it's on
So it's,
fluid
it's
ounces.
based upon the amount of consumption.
Fluid ounces, yes, that's correct.
So, but does your report reflect the collection of what we are able to tax?
I have a,
Yeah, I'll get you
Revenue
that,
has
Commissioner,
come
as a comparison, actually, the beer taxes and cigarette taxes, tobacco taxes, they've been trending downward over recent years. It may be more health conscious society that we're in right now as far as reducing consumption of alcohol and tobacco.
And I can say, I know the county has really never been interested in funding transit, but as the economic development keep bringing these businesses in the cutoff in the rural areas, we gotta do something in order to get these companies, employees to work. So the first thing they come, they wanna know what type of transit system we have before they even wanna look at coming to Jefferson County.
They already know it's what, 50th in the nation?
Yeah, so we got to do everything we can if we want businesses to come to Jefferson County to get these people to work. And the first thing they do is they build a bus route. That's what Amazon did. And that's all Amazon really wanted to talk about, Mr. Jackson, you know, was how we were going to get the employees to work. So I know transit leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. That a lot of people do depend on transit, and if it's advertised, if you take transit out of a city for 30 years, and then all of a sudden put it in there and start opening the doors, how will people know that that route now is functioning when it's been going through your city and not opening the doors?
And I think that's part of the problem.
Well,
Is not knowing
And you bring
what
up
what
economic
you've got,
development.
what is your product.
We had when we had a Skype with VIA, and Birmingham's doing their pilot program with VIA in a certain section of Birmingham, a zone, and I think that's something that I know Walter's looking into. That I'd like VIA eventually to come make a presentation to us as well, as how can that be a force multiplier for BJCTA, and how can it help folks get beyond just the routes. It's the BJCTA needs to be the artery, and then VIA needs to be the veins. How does it get better, and you can have private industry buy into it as well. So I think there's some good options for transit coming.
Yeah, and we looked at VIA, and even in the other states that they're in, they don't come into high crime area like Uber and Lyft. don't come into high crime area, like Pizza Hut and all the rest of them don't deliver in those areas. But that's still not fair to keep the people from going to work. The ones that's doing right.
So part, go ahead.
What I would like to, Mr. Jackson, transportation is when they come, bring your routes, show us what your routes are, where are the stops, what time of days. That's, you know, I have no clue.
I think Commissioner Stevens mentioned that at another commission in terms of, and so I requested that they bring that whole presentation, show us exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what areas are affected. And I spoke with Commissioner AMMONS regarding that in terms of possible future development areas in terms of businesses. We wanted them to project ahead in terms of what they need to do, you know, going forward.
And I think I was very vocal back when we gave them the 100 and they come back and ask for more, that this is not going to be something that we're interested in being perpetuated. But I did go over there and meet with them because I know they got a new board and got a new director, and I think they're really trying. That's why I was in favor of, you know, putting another 250 out there to see if we could get them over that hump. But I don't like this when it comes back 250 and then we're short. I mean, it just looks like there's...
With our involvement increasing, I think they'll intended to do better. With our help, they can do better.
Well, yeah, everybody can do better with our help.
And we need it, but 250 is what we had to work with. We worked with it. We see some issues with it. We can go forward, we can work it out.
So here's Mr. Jackson, what I would appreciate. When they do come and bring their presentation, I'd like to see what are their marketing plans around publishing information for public use and access. I hope that at some point, since we are innovative and evolving, that we'll stop looking at public transportation associated with poverty anyway. Most progressive cities and states don't do that. They see public transportation as a way to for environmental use and everything else, and we seem to always associate it with poverty. And if you do it correctly and provide the service, it can actually become a self-sustaining service if we stop putting the stigma of poverty associated with it. I think that the whole look of it all, and so I'm asking you to let them know, because that's what I'm gonna be looking for. Moving forward, what does that look like? Because you go to any other major city, I mean, they have transit and everything. That's their main form of transportation. I mean, John Henry's getting ready to go to one of them. So I you know, that's the bottom line. If you only have just cars as a mean of primary travel, then yeah. So I think we need to change how the perception of providing public transportation, what does that look like? And I'm hoping that Helen, wherever she is, can, I'm sure back there, so Helen can help us in conjunction with their marketing efforts to see it from a different perspective. Because, you know, we're always on them about new routes, new buses, being on time and doing all that stuff. And then when we start associating it with poverty, nobody sees that as a means of economic progress, and you got projects that are there, and so, hey, we can help with ozone and environmental issues. I mean, it just seems like we're not ever getting that message out, that we're providing alternative transportation.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Let me add this. I was in the legislature for many years, and during that period of time, there were many attempts to have the gasoline tax to go to funding of transit. It always failed. It always failed in the legislature. There are only, in the country, 46 states fund transit through gasoline and those taxes. And we're one of the 4 states that doesn't fund it. The problem with transit is
You don't have dedicated dollars.
Huh?
You don't have dedicated dollars.
Exactly. And years ago, I guess it was about 10 or 15 years ago, Senator Shelby had $80 million for transit, and tried to get the legislature to do the match, and it just didn't work. And I can tell you from a personal note, George Perdue would introduce it every bill every year, and he came to me and said, look, will you try it? And I tried it and failed miserably. I even had one of my colleagues say, I voted with you because I felt sorry for you, but it failed miserably.
Well,
but it's a you know, you've got Mobile, Jefferson County, Montgomery, Huntsville. You have these areas that have a lot of economic development going on, and it needs to be a process working with the Alabama legislature, the governor's office, the road builders, and those different organizations to try to get some committed funding.
But that's how Georgia, with their model system, transit makes people spend money within your city because they are able to move around and go to the mall in different areas. And transit is not a money-making source for it. It's supposed to be able to stand on its own. But I think in our mind, we don't want to invest anything in it because we feel like it should make money, I guess, to put in the general fund. I don't know. But that's not what it's for. If you look at Georgia, it's a perfect example. They have a workshop getting ready to come up, and I'm going to go down there. It really totally explains transit and the way they are making money, the way transit is making money in the state of Georgia. They have like within the top 5 transportation system in the country.
Well, and when you have, you know, in the larger cities, when you have those large cities, they don't want vehicles downtown because there's nowhere to park them and to put them. But it's a large issue that the commission, legislators can work in the governor's office to try to solve this issue.
so let me ask this question, Mr. Patel. Do you perceive that this is something that maybe is a ask that we may need to ask our Jefferson County delegation to attempt? Because again, we're asking it now for something we should have had a conversation about prior to now, so that this additional funding that is needed, we can see if they're, go ahead.
Yeah, I can tell you what they're gonna say.
It has to be statewide. It has to be statewide.
Well, but I'm
We just-
saying in other words,
No, what they're arguing
Know what the
is,
bill was.
we just gave them $2 million.
But they didn't even know what the $2 million was used. They said to use it on the routes when we were up at City Club. They didn't know what the bill was themselves. So how can we can, because that was on my list, was transportation.
So
So
brought the question
they-
up, Senator Smith,
absolutely didn't
because
know.
he challenged us to do it last time, and I told him we were looking at VIA and we've done this and we need to do it.
He didn't know.
another
He said
250.
to use it for routes. You can't use that for routes.
Well, but he said there's some state money there, and he
Okay,
explained what
use
it
it
was,
for
but we're
that
not
$2
getting
million?
it.
Yeah.
She just said they could. Marlinda, didn't you say that money's unrestricted?
You don't have grants for routes, Commissioner. It's a matching fund for grants. You cannot apply for a grant for
I
route
get that,
money.
and that's what I was thinking, but she said that's not so.
The way it was ultimately written, that the legislature, they made some changes. It just says $2 million should go to transit, period. That's it.
Max can use it however they want to use it, but no one can tell them how to use it.
The intent was
Just
to
the
use
intent.
as
Yes.
a 20%.
That's right.
Strong suggestion.
And what they've done is use it the way Commissioner Knight said. They was well,
So
you
that's
said
why
your
they do it.
understanding was that the way it was supposed to be used.
That was our understanding.
It was
what
sold
Yes.
to the public.
It was
It's sold to the public that way.
And picked
Well,
up
that's the
public
way they've
support
been
that
using
way.
it. I can assure you that that's the way they've been using it.
Absolutely.
Now, I sent that out to you all. Commissioner Knight is correct. He didn't get it. His, what is his name?
Joel and I.
Joel Knight got it. But I just gave, but I gave him a copy, but the others got it. I just gave him a hard
I've
copy.
only been working with you 9 years, well.
His name pops
So,
up
but,
sometime now.
well, here's where I'm going with it, is because to me, obviously, with the state of Alabama, is such deep, nasty roots with the 1901 Constitution. And you know it and I know it. That's the elephant in the room. And once, you know, that happened with the bus boycott, that was a wrap for transit, and it's been a wrap ever since. However, it is negatively impacting some of your larger counties because of the fact of that systemic mentality that this is like one of those things that people are taking a position of being God. We're just gonna punish you for eternity. But so I'm just trying to help us to work through and navigate that so that maybe perhaps the county doesn't have to try to foot it all the way on its own. But if there's a situation where there are possibilities of us getting some type of assistance to, and I'm not just interested in the areas that I cover, I'm talking about all of Jefferson County. If we can help to assist, even with Birmingham, we recognize that there's some issues there. Okay, fine, and it's for everyone, because ever since I've been a council member, there's always been a tit-for-tat about transit. So that being the case, I'm just saying, whatever you foresee, and if you could share that with me, if not now, but at some point, being that you have that institutional knowledge of the legislature, that would help us. And I will tell you, when we did have that meeting and you were there, it's very interesting sometimes how things you all have done in the past, and I don't know if you just simply don't recall, or you just don't. Well, you know, that's the elephant in the room too, you know, because then when you get to the county level, the local city level, now it seems as though everybody sees the face of the local folk, because all politics is local, but it really stays down there in Montgomery. And so we need Montgomery to help us more, excuse me, than what they're doing, so then it allows us to be able to facilitate here locally. You know, it's kind of like shooting the face you see versus the hand that you don't see.
Right. What would be the ask of the legislature?
Well, what I'm saying is, if Senator Smitherman, for example, is saying that there are dollars out there, I don't want it to be said that this commission didn't ask for it. Ask and let them put it in writing that it doesn't exist. That's how you have a transparent discussion with your constituents. So you say, hey, listen, we tried to shoot for additional dollars that we didn't have in our general fund to pay for, and so here's what we got in return. But if we're just having a discussion and no deliberate action being taken on our part, then it looks like that we haven't done our fiduciary responsibility. Even if they deny us, at least ask. The senator said, I mean, you know, it's less senators than there are state reps. So if he said it's there, then fine, then let's inquire. And if it turns out not to be, it won't be because we didn't ask.
Session starts next month. A good resolution will start the process.
Well, then we'll work on a good resolution, Mr. Jackson. And then, Mr. PETELOS, if you will allow us to work with this fine gentleman to help us craft with the law department what that needs to look like, then we will absolutely make it a part of that discussion. And I think that the commission as a whole would be opposed to that.
What does the resolution look like?
I'm sorry?
What does the resolution, what is our ask?
Well, your ask should be simply if there are funds that can be appropriated to the Jefferson County with the intent to take care of the municipalities in which we service, then we would like for the state legislature to assist us in that regard.
There were
You
some
know, I'm not the
specific-
lawyer. That's what you got Miss Shauna for.
Yeah.
She's a pretty girl. She'll help us out.
There
Whatever the law department says legally, how that needs to be said, the intent is to make sure that if there are funds available or funding available, that the Jefferson County be considered as a part of that appropriation.
The senator spoke to, I think, 3 specific
The gas
pot-
tax.
spots of money that they did do for transit. And I wasn't aware of any of them, so understanding what those are and then seeing if we can.
One of them was the gas tax, the new gas tax, but he didn't say specifically how much it was. He said, but a portion of that was for transportation,
Of the gas tank?
Where?
of the gas tax. That's what he said.
And let me also,
He said
I
it.
don't remember all that was.
He said it.
Oh, I understand he said it, but I
The
don't.
new, the one that just passed, the gas
Yes.
tax last year, I think there was some type of formula there, there's, the way it's set up now, state law, you cannot use gas tax funding for
Right.
transit.
It has to be for infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that may be the problem. Now, this has been great. Golly, I've learned a great deal, and I know you have, Sam.
Seriously, it has been.
It has
Very informative,
very informative,
and encouraging.
And if you will take this back to the board when you make your presentation, that I think that it will help get our all on the same page, and I certainly appreciate that. Thank you everyone for this very in-depth discussion, and now, yes, ma'am.
I did want to say this too. Absent of that, thank you, ma'am, for the part I did see. But on another note, Mr. President, I think we should, at some point, if not in this meeting, I hope we can do it in this meeting as new business, but I think we need to also talk about this Cooper Green Board and how even those who passed that law didn't know that they gave majority authority to UAB. I thought that was a very interesting discussion, and I'm saying this because you were not there at the time, and they didn't know that they had given UAB all of this authority, and that therefore the county had, it didn't matter, I'm going by what they said. I ain't trying to correct nothing they said. That's what they said at the meeting, that they didn't know that they only gave the county 3 seats and 4, and then those 3 seats had to be approved by UAB. And this is nothing against
Who all
UAB.
voted for this,
Well, who
didn't
said
read
that?
what they voted for.
Oh, I understand, Mr. President, but you might need to, you might need to know that, you know, that I thought that was very interesting.
I mean, he kinda got on me about it, and I'm like, y'all passed the
That's right,
legislation.
that's right, that's
We're just
right.
following what
You know,
y'all
I'm not
passed.
sure that I was even aware of it after it passed. Hey,
Mr. President.
that's, yeah, we need to move on.
I gotta, Ms. Parker, thank you, good job.
Thank you very much. Joe, do you need to go next?
No, I'm good. I
Okay.
just don't wanna be here like
Let's
three.
go down the line. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have 6 items and for Public Works, Community Services, and Intergovernmental Relations. Number 1 is Global Construction and Engineering. This is an ALDOT Foundation, which is also a release and indemnification, hold harmless agreement. ALDOT, and then we have Womack Road Sanitary Improvements. And so is that you, Mr. Dennett?
Yeah.
You like to speak?
I can answer any questions anybody has about it.
I just have a question on number 3 on the SIP code. Why would they wanna do that? Why would they wanna abandon the?
We
give
think it's
a-
pretty rare. Usually it happens when somebody's trying to redevelop the property and the sewer line's in the way. So a lot of times it's easier if it's only serving their property to just turn it over to them and let them make it a service line. That way they don't have to relocate it or anything else like that.
But they're not coming off the sewer.
No.
Okay.
It's not our main anymore and they do what they want with it. It's usually cheaper to their advantage. So.
Under items 1 through 6.
So, hold on, did anybody have a question as to, so I'm assuming that this is happening also with the Woodlawn Foundation too? That's interesting, the Woodlawn Foundation needs this kind of request?
They're the same type of an agreement, yeah. They're doing some redevelopment too, so.
Will that let them build over the line, whereas we won't let them?
Yeah, well, they
get
can,
it.
put stuff closer to the line or whatever, because it's there.
What is the Woodlawn Foundation project that they're doing that they need this?
I don't know specifically what they're doing out
It's
there.
a new building
Okay.
for a school.
It's a new school, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just wanna know, it's in my district.
It's on the backup. I remember reading
It's
about
a
it,
school.
but it ain't a public school.
It's a charter school.
It's a charter school.
Wow.
I don't know if it's charter members.
Well, if it ain't.
There's a motion in a second.
Charter. How you gonna move my stuff?
I'm just catching everybody back up.
Okay, so, no, I said I'd like to entertain a motion at the time. I'm gonna say
Wait.
that part.
You already got a
And
motion
Jimmy,
in
you
a
stop
second.
running my stuff. All right, now before I get in District 3.
I move that we call for a vote. How about that?
I'd like to entertain a motion for items 1 through 6 at this time.
Again. Second again.
I second my first.
Whatever, as long as you did it where I can hear. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Have an infrastructure grant under other business for District 1 for Minor Middle School, which of course you and I both share Minor, I think, Mr. President. And then we have, that's $5,000 and $2,500 for Ursula Smith Dance group. And so I'd like to entertain a motion at this time.
I'll move.
All right, it's been moved, and can I get a second?
Second.
It's moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. One other thing I'd like to make the commission aware of is that on the 7th floor, don't want this to catch you all by surprise. Obviously, there was a movement by or an action taken on behalf of the commission. And I can't say thank you enough for supporting that resolution as relates to the 7th floor and the last remaining jail cells. I will ask you to take a moment today to go on the 7th floor. This is at no cost to the taxpayers of Jefferson County, and see the work that has been done on the 7th floor as relates to the memorialization of the 7th floor. I think you'll find it to be very educational. Look forward to working with you and your staff, Mr. PETELOS, so that we can work together for the public at some point. I share with Mr. PETELOS so you all can know what that conversation was, is that it does us no good if the public doesn't have access to view it. And have you been on the 7th floor yet?
No.
Okay. So it is very educational. It's self-explanatory. And so I was talking to Mr. PETELOS. Obviously, we don't have to open it up in its initial phase of every day, but that there are days of the week, maybe 2 to 3 days a week with specific hours that folk can come. I will tell you, there was the mayor of Oregon. We got him on video, but he came.
Oregon, Alabama?
No.
Mayor of Oregon.
Mayor of, well, stop being smart. I know Oregon is the state. What is it, Jacob? What is this city? Hillsboro? Hillsboro, Oregon.
Okay.
Smarty pants. And he came, and I'll be honest with you, I think the commission would be proud. He cried the majority of the time he was here. We saw him down at the park in Kelly Ingram. He cried there, and he and his wife, they came, and in fact, while I was on the floor, I didn't see the area where they had solitary confinement, which of course had no toilet. And he asked me what it was, and we went in there and looked at it together. And he talked about it. And let me just say this for us as a group: he was a white gentleman, and he cried, and he told me about the fact of in his city he have a lot of Hispanics, and he was talking about the inhumaneness and his perception of Birmingham before he got here. This was his first time in the South, and so I think it was very tearful for him, and he learned a lot. So I encourage everybody, including staff, you get the opportunity to go up on the floor. But I certainly didn't want money to be an obstacle for us to be able to tell the story. I think we have something very historical here in this building, and I'm not looking necessarily for us to change it from what its current use is, but the portion that tells the story, we need to tell it. So I look forward to working with you and your staff to making that happen, Mr. PETELOS, and I'm glad that there were businesses in the area that were willing to step up, not under duress. I want to say that for the record. This is what they wanted to do, and they were willing to take a part of it. I will also say This has made national news, so it's been on CNN and it has been on the Washington Post and Boston Globe and some others. So we've gotten a lot of good national coverage out of it, but I look forward to it being international. I think it's a continuation of the 200 bicentennial. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Good morning, everyone. Community Development and Resource Services, our committee. Cooper Green Mercy Health Services.
Yes, ma'am. We have two contracts today. The first one is a software interface that we use in our lab. It's around $4,000. The second one is the Care Vision contract, which is a parts only. It's basically a contract to buy parts for our pulmonary function tests.
Move one.
Equipment.
Second.
Okay, it's been first and second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. You have nothing from the coroner's office, our community service and workforce development, Dr. Hammond.
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 6 items this morning. First, Sigma Property Services, resolution authorizing the Commission President to sign a rental agreement and any other required documents between Jefferson County and Sigma Properties for $3,390. This particular recipient of these funds had some issues with a vaccination. She had a reaction to it, was out of work. She's back at work, and so we need to help her because she was unable to work and led to her not being able to pay her rent. Number 2 is a full satisfaction mortgage for Geneva Cameron. It was a mortgage with Greater Birmingham Habitat for Humanity, and that mortgage has been purchased and paid in full.
Where's that located, that house? Do you know?
I'm not certain. I'll get it to you. Number 3 is an environmental review. As you remember, on the last agenda, we had a series of these where we have to take an environmental activity. This is for our housing program delivery, and this action is exempt, and we just documented in the file. Number 4 is a grant that will be applied for on behalf of UAB to SAMHSA for substance abuse and treatment capacity. The grant is for $2 million. It will be $40,000 over a 5-year period. Number 5 is a preliminary award letter for the Villas at York Ltd. This proposed project is in Grayson Valley. The developer is Advantage, and they'll be using this letter as they make application to the State Alabama Finance Authority. Number 6 is with Titan Electric for the Graceville ballpark. This will be a project where we're putting lights in their existing ballpark, and this is awarding that contract to Titan in the amount of $113,000.
Move.
First and second, all in favor, say aye.
I do have on the Graysville ballpark, the independent contractor submission form. I think I need to make an edit on that because it's in Chinese. Or hieroglyphics, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's in order.
Okay, for sure. I think that was corrected. It should have been corrected before it was reviewed by everybody. But anyway, we'll make.
Well, that's what was printed on the agenda. So is it Millie's fault?
No, I ain't saying it's nobody's fault.
I'll give it to you on
Doc,
the
we're
line.
going
We have to
put off
convert the file.
Sure.
And
presentation for next time.
That'd be good.
it will
Okay,
need
good.
to have us run the agenda.
We've been here an hour and a half already. It's our intention to get everybody through, and that's what
No.
Administrative instruction, Committee Roads and Transportation, there are 7 items for roads and transit. Any questions on those?
We still got beaver issues?
Yeah.
Beavers, yeah. We're back.
You know, we're getting new beaver out in Leeds.
Yeah.
Oh, Bucky's.
That's a lot of money for beavers. We had a guy that They did it for nothing.
For the pelts?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, I think, an annual amount depending on, how much they actually do, so it won't necessarily be that much, but yeah. This also includes, now they gotta get easements to go. Most of these dams are off the right of way just out, so they gotta talk to the private owners, get their easements, and all
When
that.
you say they, do we know who we're dealing with?
Beaver hunters.
This, what's the name of it, Heather?
I think it's Wildlife Management Services.
The name of the company is Wildlife Management
I
Services.
think that's what it is.
This is an amendment to that contract.
They've done, we had a 3-year bid with them to do beaver removal services, and they've done 1 year, and so this is the renewal for this next year.
Do we know what they did as far as how many beavers they relocated and all that?
So they don't get relocated, that's not.
Well, they like in the old days when we go find our dog a nice home in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have identified those sites with them, and they have trapped locations. Some of them, they've rehomed multiple beavers. And they continue to monitor sites, because once we do a rehoming, we can occasionally have some new volunteers that like the area. So it's a process.
Furnished apartments. Move 1 through 5 or 6 or how many it was.
7.
I'll second 1 through 7.
1 through 7. All
Thank you.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. County Attorney, Jones Group.
It's just your lobbying contract, it's just a renewal. I think there's a slight increase to $9,000 a month, and otherwise it's the same.
$600 a month, $500, $667 a month.
I do. There's something in that, but we can talk about that offline.
Mr. President? Okay, before we move the item, I also want to make sure that we make a request in this setting formally of the Jones Group. The legislature, Mr. President, made mention that they'd like to meet with us quarterly. I think it was it quarterly? I know it wasn't every 6 months, but quarterly, for us to have or establish quarterly meetings with the Jefferson County delegation, so that we can look at how we work together on behalf of Jefferson County. That was a request made by it may have been Senator Smithman, and I said that we could go ahead and look at doing that. And so if we can agree to that, Mr. President, collectively this morning, that we're going to absolutely take him up on that offer.
Yeah, it may not be quarterly, but regularly.
Well, why wouldn't you? I mean, we asking them to do
well,
it.
and when we meet with them, we kind of need to talk as one, instead of everybody sending them their
I agree,
requests,
but then we just need to do our due diligence, and we do what we need to do. One of the things they said, the reason why we're not getting as much as we should is because communication between us and them have not been the best. And they said we have a lobbyist to lobby them, but they don't have a lobbyist to us. And I said, yes, you do, because we pay them. And as long as they organize the meeting, we're going to be there. And I think it would behoove us to do it. We just talked about one need this morning. Transportation. I know Commissioner AMMONS has talked about economic development opportunities that we can utilize, and all of that can be a conversation that if we're doing it along the way, then we don't have to try to monopolize the meeting, which is kind of how I was doing when we went over it the last time.
And then everyone get a chance to say something, and one person don't hog up all the time.
Well, and wait a minute. Were you looking at me? Were you looking at me when you said that?
Well, if the shoe fit, well.
Yeah, but I don't think nobody was hogging the time. I think it was a matter of walking into the meeting and not knowing that our
you were gonna
president
have
was
to
not
speak.
going to be here, and so really was trying to fill in the gap in terms of trying to smooth that over so that we could all.
Ought to fill in that
just
spot.
right.
And
Just
I'll move the item.
yeah.
Second.
Aye. And please make that request for us, please.
Yeah, that.
Move the minutes.
We have a motion for the contract. We have a second. We have a vote for the contract, right?
Yeah.
Now, for the second amendment, you made that motion for the
Yeah, I'll do that as well.
All right, for the Sunday on a regular basis, or to meet on a regular basis to be determined.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion. So, now that's gonna require unanimous consent.
All right.
So are y'all actually wanting to amend the contract to say that, or do you just want?
No,
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 it's
no,
not
this
about
is
amending
different.
the
This is-
contract.
this is-
Then
We
you don't-
voted on that. That's
Okay.
This is a new
I
item.
mean, to me, that's just a conversation. We didn't, I don't know
That's
that that
something-
was.
part of the job.
I don't
job
think you.
requirement.
Let's get that as part of the job, right? That way we won't need a resolution. All right, minutes from the commission meeting, January
Move
9th.
it.
Second.
Move it second, all in favor say aye. We've already done about minutes, presentation. I have two items. Community grant infrastructure, Bessemer Hall of History.
I move it. That's old train station.
That's the old train station, it's Commissioner Tyson's district, but I invested in that area and their roof is leaking and it's ruining some of the museum artifacts that are in there. So I think that it's something that really needs to be done, and I would challenge Commissioner Tyson to help.
That's that clay
I
tower.
don't
That's
have
a
it.
great
I
tower.
don't have any more money.
So,
Unless you give me some of yours.
Good one.
You give me some of yours.
community grant for the Baptist Fire District, how about that too, $35?
I'm gonna give 5,000.
Can we do one and two?
I move 1 and 2.
One or two, thank you.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have one item of new business that's coming from the, Deputy County Manager of Infrastructure, that's paving contracts. So I would like to, ask for unanimous consent for the consideration of three contracts, right?
Yeah, I want to explain the 3 contracts and we want to move one of them.
You explain it, and then we'll
Alright.
go for unanimous consent, and then we'll vote.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. The Roads Department has worked hard to prepare plans and specifications for about 41 miles of major road reconstruction, and they did that in 3 groups. So there's 3 different sets of roads. 2 of the 3 have various cities that have to participate on the roads, particularly Birmingham, Homewood. One of the groups is strictly all in the county. We have Group 1, which is Valley Road, Aeronautic Road, and Rutledge. There's no city to participate in those, so that's the one we want to move forward. Group 2 is Oxmoor Road, Shannon, West Oxmoor, South Shades Crest, and Shades Crest. We have Birmingham we're waiting on a commitment from, and the city of Homewood we're waiting on a commitment from. And then Group 3 is Ruffner Road, Alton Road, and Altadena Road, which has a portion in the city of Birmingham. So we'd like to move on. We may have, we got everything ready. We'd like to go ahead and award Group 1 and then work with you in the city of Birmingham and Homewood in the coming weeks to get a commitment to fund those portions so we don't have to pave and stop, pave and stop, pave and stop on the next groups. And as soon as we get that resolved, whether they commit or don't, we'll come back and award Group 2 and 3.
And if Birmingham doesn't come on board, we got these little signs that we're gonna put out.
Yes, sir, we do.
Enter Jefferson County Maintenance.
Yeah, because we've seen that on a couple of roads in my district, and people think I'm crazy. I'm like, it's not
You
us.
gonna say that again?
All right, like if you're paving a road, and like for instance, Queenstown Road in my district, we paved it, and we had Irondale, and we had Birmingham, had Trussville, and had County. We paved the road, and did a through road agreement on it. We paved Irondale's portion, we paved Trussville's portion, we paved our portion, but we don't have a through road agreement with Birmingham, and so you got a really nice road, crap, and really nice road. And people think, why didn't y'all just pave the whole thing? It's like, well, because Birmingham, we tried, but they didn't want to participate. So but so what I'm saying is we have these markers that says in the Jefferson County road maintenance. So that's what I'm talking about, the signs.
And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all over and meanders in and out like that with all the different municipalities.
It just makes a lot more sense to work an agreement out and
Yeah.
take the entire roadway.
Mr. President, I do for unanimous consent for immediate consideration on those items.
Second.
Consent, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consideration.
Move that.
Items removed.
Second.
All in favor say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Thank you. That's
That's like 2 minutes.
Let's
go.
Let's go.
You just remember that when I spoke to the
Mr. Knight.
All right.
We had that, right?
I said, you just go out there.
Mr. Henry,
Commissioners,
as your final,
good morning.
Good morning.
What you have in front of you is our normal unusual demand report. Items 2, 3, and 4 are our purchasing and incumbent reports. 5, 6, and 7 are our procurement card statements. As you see, we have changed the language in reference from a credit card to a procurement card, working with legal to make sure we are in line with the Attorney General's opinion on that. Number 8 is the Warren Everett Cooper Green. This is the conversion audit. So what this is an audit of the Indigent Care Fund as of the cutoff time, or when we transition to the health authority. So as part of the agreement, we want to do an audit so we can take a snapshot in time of where the Indigent Care Fund assets and all that good stuff are to transition to the health authority, so everyone is on the same page. We are engaging Warren Everett, who actually does our CAFA audit now and is very, very familiar with the Indigent Care Fund, Cooper Green, and the county's financial statements. Number 9 is Building Specialties, Inc. This is the reason it's shown on the finance. It's countywide, so any entity can use this contract for doors, ESD, Cooper Green, General Services. And then item 10 is just an update to the resolution in reference to capitalization. What that means is the way we were capitalizing assets, the way we were recording assets on the county's books, we recorded everything under $15,000. It was very inefficient and very ineffective, especially in reference to software and things like that. So we wanted to update our rules to be in compliance with the state of Alabama, as well as in compliance with GFOA best practices. So we are now capitalizing software over $1 million, as well as right-of-way, things like that, over $250,000. So that brings us in line with best practices in the state of Alabama.
couple of years late, but we got there, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
We was around the corner. We rounded home.
Under that amount, or expensing those under that amount?
Under that amount, you expense it. Yes, sir. And the reason you do that, especially on the software piece, because software changes so fast, it's changing so quickly. So we were actually holding stuff on our books from a couple years ago that we just didn't need to hold anymore. So as we go through this, as you can imagine, we have almost $2 billion in assets. So the goal of the finance and accounting team is to really keep track of those assets that have the life of what it's supposed to have. And then the best way we do that is expensing those items that do not, expensing the things that we shouldn't be capitalizing. So this just updates all of that.
Item 1 through 10, do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Budget Management Office, any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move.
Have a motion, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, I have Developmental Services B200001. Mr. Morrison.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a transfer of a beverage license for the Forestdale Jet Pet. It's on Highway 78. They have a history of sale of off-premise beer and wine at this location, starting back in 2011. Last time the license was renewed was back in 2017. In this area, about a third of the mile up is another gas station that has alcohol sales at their location. In the other direction, you get back into the city of Birmingham, which also has alcohol sales like at the pilot station and all that's down 78. Everything checks out with the applicant. He has no criminal record at all. In fact, the applicant is, the owner of the business is actually a county employee with good grief.
Y'all double check them then? All right, do I have a motion?
Move the item.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Item 2, Jefferson County Soil Water Conservation Foundation Grant Agreement. Who's got that one?
I move.
Yes, tell us, talk to us.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. This grant is for the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation Foundation to assist Jefferson County with providing household hazardous waste disposal days as well as electronic recycling days throughout Jefferson County. Would be open to all Jefferson County residents. Currently, we plan for up to $54,000 to be used on Saturday, April the 25th, for 3 household hazardous waste collection days in Bessemer, in Gardendale, and Idendale. 3 different sites open to everybody throughout the county. And so far, we have planned 2 electronic collection events on Saturday, March 7th at the Birmingham Zoo, and Saturday, June the 13th at the Center County Courthouse to collect all electronics like TVs and cell phones and VCR, all the kinds of things that people want to get rid of. And this is part of our NPDES permit, which requires us to properly dispose of these items. And it also assists us in having people properly place them rather than dumping them or illegally disposing of them.
Yeah, I got some paint I need to drop off. Was that a motion?
He had the motion, I had the second.
Motion was second. Now, where does this money come from? Mr. Dawson, Mr. Henry? It's a grant.
Grant, yeah.
It's line item.
This is general fund.
Okay. Has it been budgeted, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's a great program.
Yeah, I agree, just check. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, I have a temporary salary increase for the interim director of revenue of 15%.
Move the item.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Tax assessor, salary adjustment, appointed administrative clerk, resolution increases salary of appointed administrative clerk by 5% to $72,618 effective. Looks like it's retroactive to January 5th. This has been requested by the tax assessor. Anybody want to address that? Well, they should come up and lobby for their own tax increase, I think.
This is, if you're talking about the salary adjustment, Commissioner, this was what we talked about during the budget time. It's for the Gaynell. I think it was Gaynell and John were here to discuss it, and so what we did was delay it until I think Gaynell wanted to go back and have some additional discussions with, I can't remember the lady's name. Then they've done that, but this is in the budget. They are the funding is there, so they're good to go. It's from a funding amount.
All right.
Move the item.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Tax collector, Mr. Henry, you want to take this one?
Sure, but it's I can just read it. It's a non-disclosure data license.
Do I have a motion on 1, 2, 3?
I'll get this.
Have a motion. Do I have a second on Mr. Henry's awesome reading?
Read it.
Yes, sir. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Commissioner, what this does is it's so what I think is what we talked about last year. This actually we just send them the data in reference to it's like a data file that we actually send them in reference to addresses and all that goofy stuff. So this is just, and as you can see, it's just to each institution, and I think we do it every year.
And we pay the institutions?
No, they pay us.
They pay us, yeah.
That wasn't made clear in your reading. All right. Other district business, I have a public service grant. This is for the Red Mountain Theater Company for $25,000.
Move items 1 and 2.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
A couple of items that I have to at least throw out for discussion is I've been approached again by the World Police and Fire Games people that they are close to needing to make an application to get the police and the World Police and Fire Games here in 2025. This is it's a several day event. It's a 10-day event. There's over 50 different categories of competition. This is something that's been in place since 1985. They do it every 2 years. The one last year was in Chengdu, China. It'll go to Rotterdam, Netherlands next year. In Canada the year after that. We're making a bid, or they're wanting to make a bid for the police and World Police and Fire Games to come here. It's a little bit unlike the World Games in the fact that these people pretty much have to pay their own way, whereas on World Games, you know, the countries pay their athletes and then we have to accommodate them. So it's projected, I don't know where they got the numbers, but it's supposed to be a $75 million impact. Probably they advertise as 10,000 athletes will be coming, so it's another big event. I've kind of, you know, we've been working on World Games, so I think, you know, you have to consider what is it that we want to be down the road, or we want to be a destination place like this. Now, I did talk with some of the police people and some of the fire people and asked them about it, and unanimously they go, y'all gotta bring those games here. That's huge for us. The ask is going to be $2 million from us, $2 million from the city of Birmingham, $1 million from the state, and then you got ticket sales, corporate sponsors. It's not going to be a big shakedown. The way I understand is what we're having to go to the corporate sponsors here for World Games, because you're going to have a lot of these vendors that sell items to fire departments all over the world will be coming here and being vendors for that event. But you know, I didn't realize it, but they did tell me, says, well, we gotta make an ask before, or get our application in before February 1st. Right now, I think we've got the clear path to be able to get these games. So I don't know why all of a sudden the accelerated timeline, but just wanted to put that out there. I think we need to kind of mull it over amongst ourselves. Are we committed to doing this again? Because it'll be like a $400,000 or $500,000, similar like the World Games that we finance over time. Yeah, and then Birmingham, from what I understand, they're kind of on the edge of that fence too. So I think it's going to take both of us if we're going to make this happen. So we'll have to talk with them too to see where we are, and then we have to make a decision as to where we
hosted the International Law Enforcement Games in like 88, 89, and it was a big event.
Yeah.
And I ran the Southeastern Police and Fire Championships for 4 out of the 15 years I was involved with that. So it's great. Economic impact aside, it's great for our police officers and firefighters to participate in something and kind of show what they can do. And it's more of a feel good for them and recognition for what they're doing and another level of competition. So.
And it's for active and retired. So I mean, you got different categories of guys competing. In some of the events, I know we're swimming and long distance swimming, and just like track and field, and discus and shot put,
PPC,
and they shoot,
long rifle, large board, small
board,
basketball, softball, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Economic impact is what.
They from what, and they said that they had given this to us a while back. I just got an updated version. I'll get this to you, but they said 75 million. Now, that's, you know, to the area. Now, it will be for hotels and stuff, because unlike World Games, you know, these people will have to come and get rooms and bring their families and that sort of thing.
And they do travel.
Yeah.
They do travel.
And you'll have the stadium, and you'll have the new arena.
Right.
And you'll have the Sheraton up in Blue Grant, so all those 3 things.
Yeah.
Will add to the tourism part, be a good opportunity to showcase the county and the city.
And this is.
I would say that's a good deal, and I would be for it if Birmingham does it.
And I think it's
Is it contingent only upon Birmingham participating?
well.
I mean, we'd like for them to participate, but if they don't, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's
then
gonna be
what?
hard for
Who's
us.
handling it in the city?
Mayor Woodson.
Woodson.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be I think, and then I guess Parker will be the,
Liaison.
yeah, with the council, so.
Yeah, we could go our part, but I don't think we could go ours and Birmingham.
Right. So, okay, well, I just wanted to bring that back so that
You said 2022.
2025.
Yeah, I thought you said 20.
Okay. All right, one other item that.
But when are you expecting for that, if there is an ask or if there's a collaboration, when are you talking about bringing it to us in terms of asking?
Well, their
the budget?
deadline, I think their application process needs to be in before February 1st.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's not like we got a whole lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
But it's just something that we'd have to, we get the commitment, we won't have to pay any money for
A while.
but
You just need to show
they
your
just need
intentions.
that so that they can, and from what I understand, they've got we can get the games if we get to bid again.
Yeah. Anything else, sir?
I do. We're gonna be having an ask pretty soon, I think, on what our commitment will be to build a intake facility for the animals, because they have got a letter of intent to purchase some properties out on, I think it's in your district, Commissioner. And it's a good site. They've been looking forever. But as I explained, I think one of our last commission meetings is that we're going to have to buy a piece of that tract of land, and then we're going to have to put the money into it to build the kennels, basically, which will be the pound portion of the facility, because by law we have to supply a pound. And we don't want to get into a situation to where we're partnering, and we're going to continue to partner with the Birmingham Society, but if some reason they come back and say, guys, we can't afford it, we can't do it anymore, then we don't have to go out and start from scratch and go find a place and build a pound. That we're required by law. We'll have it there. It'll be severable.
It just need to be all inclusive.
Yeah, yeah.
How fast is this moving?
They from what I understand, they've got I don't know if they've signed the contract but I think we'll have a letter coming this week. Or what I'm gathering. So just.
It's surrounded by businesses.
And we've talked to Jeff Smith before, what it would cost, what would it cost for us to go out and build a new facility. And I think, Jeff, if you're still here, it was around $2 million. So I don't know what the cost of the land is, even they're negotiating that. So, but we have to be able to step into that role if this is the way we're going to go. Otherwise, we got to go build a pound. And we had one, and we were in partnership with Birmingham, and that was so confusing. And it's believe me, that place out there where they bring those dogs, it's decrepit, it's isolated, it's dangerous, it floods, there's electrical issues, and we put $275,000 in the roof probably a year and a half ago, just to keep it from gully washing in. So hopefully we can finally move on this too. So, Mr. President, that ends my report.
Thank you. John Henry. Yes, sir. Your last meeting. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to give you the floor.
Do you want to get Steve's report first?
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna go quick.
Yeah, go.
Property maintenance.
Move 1 and 2.
There's one.
One.
Motion second.
Second.
Second. All in favor, aye? All right, community grant for Well House.
Move the item.
All commissioners participated in that. I want to thank you for supporting it. I have a motion
Move the item.
and a second.
Yes.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Last little bit, had a great meeting, Economic Allies, all the fellow counties along with Jefferson and the BBA went down and visited with the Department of Commerce, did presentations on all the land opportunities and other opportunities that we have to the Department of Commerce, I guess, command staff. And it went very, very well, and they were very appreciative of the update. And so there's one big project that we're hoping to land here in the county that would be a great number of jobs and would require 200 acres. So we've got our fingers crossed that comes through. So hopefully that was just visited last week. There was a site visit last week.
Are they looking at a particular area?
I'd rather not say right now.
In this setting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like Jefferson County.
Yeah, they're looking at Jefferson
that's,
County.
well, you went to Commerce.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're competing with, I believe, Chattanooga and I think Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Jackson, Mississippi almost had a dam break recently, so they might.
Oh, on that reservoir?
Yeah. They were evacuating people with that.
That completes my report.
So, Mr. President, before we go on, please, definitely make sure your staff get in mind. So, I want to be fully abreast of what we're talking about and know whatever possibilities that we have. I'm willing to participate on all levels. So I want to make sure IFL gets with Joseph and we're there together. One quick thing too, because I know you want to give John Henry the floor, is I just text you all. Joseph has done a very great job in making sure that some of the national press that we received, and so I sent you something from New York Times Square, where you'll see the action that you took, how that played out in as it relates to memorialization of that jail cell, and that's why it's going to be so pivotal about Mr. PETELOS and us working out details. People are interested in it. Just wanted to make sure, and Ms. PETELOS, if you can make sure that Ms. Helen gets set up on the website. I think that's good news for Jefferson County that the South is not so bad. We make the question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. John Henry?
Yes, sir.
The last meeting.
Now it's time to say goodbye. You're all mine.
I really don't know what to say. You will definitely be missed. You've been an asset to this organization.
Thank you, sir.
I know that you're leaving it in good hands with Travis, because I've seen the other guy, I think, 2 other times. Several other times. And you will be missed, my friend. And we appreciate you, and like to give you an opportunity to say something for you.
Thank you, sir. I'll say, let me, for the next half hour, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
I was born
My parents are from a small town. No, I'm just joking. But it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with each and every one. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with all the staff in here, and I credit you all for where I am, for where I'm going, with the tough challenges, with the tough questions and things like that. And I think the discussion you had earlier today is right in line with what I'm going to do. And so you haven't heard the last of me. As Tony and Walter have already told me, that whatever I do work on, make sure I put Jefferson County first, and I will. I promise. And so I just want to say thank you all. It has really been my pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge, now our commission meeting will be in Vestal on Thursday, so everyone remember that. You, me, we know that are there. Okay. Do you need,
Yeah, for the department heads, if there's nothing on the agenda, don't come to business.
stay at work?
Stay at work.
Okay.
John, here,
Yes, ma'am.
DC on the third, fourth ward, census.
So call me. You have my cell phone. Please let me know.
He'll be in New York that week.
She had to go in. She had to go. I gotta.